Good evening, I'm Ces Orenia Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Sean Yao.
The big stories tonight, Vice President Sara Duterte is still picking on the Marcos administration's rice program, which she says is doomed to fail as it is being used to push for government's political agenda.
And just 3 days after the gruesome pileup in Esitex, another tragedy involving a vehicle struck at the NAIA Terminal 1, resulting in several injuries and 2 fatalities.
And 2 days until the conclave, and the CBCP goes on the defense of one of its own, Cardinal Chito Tagle, over his alleged silence on abuses within the Catholic Church.
Imposible talaga ang 20 pesos na bigas. Pero pwede siya, hindi ko lang i-share sa inyo kasi ayoko tulungan.
The government's 20 peso per kilo rice program was rolled out last Labor Day in Cebu. And the sale, as you recall, drew long lines only to be suspended a day after by the Agriculture Department itself. The DA said this is upon COMELEC's suggestion to launch after the May 12 election so as not to politicize the initiative. But Vice President Sara Duterte is not buying this.
Kasi kung ayuda ang pinag-uusapan natin, ibig sabihin, meron silang nakikitang pangangailangan sa tao, di ba? Huwag nilang i-excuse. Hindi talaga nila kaya gawin yan. Hindi sila marunong paano gawin yan. At nagsisinungaling lang sila kasi nagpapanik sila sa pagbagsak ng ratings ng kanilang mga kandidato. Sabi sa akin ng businessman, nagsinungaling siya. Kasi imposible talaga ang 20 pesos na bigas. Pero pwede siya, hindi ko lang i-share sa inyo kasi ayoko tulungan.
The Vice President also believes the recent video that surfaced against her brother, Congressman Paulo Duterte, and the assault case that followed are Malacanang's way to cover up the failed rice program rollout.
Sabi ko na nga, every time nagkakaroon sila ng issue, malaking issue na kabalbalan na ginagawa nila, ang kanilang pang-cover sa mga issue na ito ay atakihin yung kalaban nila sa politika. Tulad nga ng sinabi ko, blanco yung budget, nag-file sila ng impeachment. Nung nagkaroon ng drug overdose at merong namatay sa Amerika at nandoon sa loob ng kwarto si First Lady Lisa Marcos at nandoon sa police report, cocaine yung sinasabing nagkalat doon sa kwarto na yon, ay bigla na lang nilang hinila, kinidnap, kinuha, dinukot si Pangulong Duterte. Ngayon naman, 20 pesos ang kilo ng bigas, isang araw lang, tapos na, wala na. Kinalimutan na naman na pangako, ay bigla na lang merong nag-file ng complaint kay Congressman Pulong.
The palace, as usual, is not letting Duterte's word slide and immediately fired back at the VP.
Sa kanya pala nanggaling ang fake news. Siya pala ang source ng fake news na ito na pinapakalat laban sa unang ginang, kay First Lady. Unang-una po, kailangan pa ba natin paniwalaan ang mga ganitong klaseng istorya na nanggagaling sa Vice Presidente? That the Vice President should have at least leveled up in her discussions, in her responses, in certain issues. Hindi ba dapat sagutin na lamang nila kung ano ang complaint? Definitely, Congressman Pulong Duterte is a public servant. He should know his obligations. He should know the laws. He should know what good traits of a leader should be.
Well, who better to react to the Vice President's allegations than the Department of Agriculture? And we have on the show DA Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel. Good evening, Secretary. Welcome to The Big Story.
Good evening, Sean and Pauline. No? I'm happy to be here para ma-share ko rin yung thoughts ko sa mga statement na yun.
So, well, first of all, that politics is behind this program, 20 kilo rice program.
Well, one thing is, of course, as I mentioned before, I am not a politician at all. And this is something that the DA has to do, no, because of our warehouses are basically full and we have to move out our stocks. Well, timing lang talaga na mag-election pa, nagkasabay lang. Pero ito din naman yung pangako ni President Marcos na ipapatupad na.
Kaya lang po yung pagpapatupad, kailangan ng subsidy. Hindi naman dahil nag-improve yung pagtatanim natin. And I understand that 9 billion is needed so that this program can roll out till December of this year. Paano po natin popondohan ang 9 billion?
Well, first of all, yes, it is really a subsidy, no? But it is the pangako nga, no, na pinapatupad na. 50% of that will be funded by the national government and we were given 4.5 billion pesos from the President's own contingency fund to do this, ano? And the other half will be coming from the participating LGUs.
So, would you say that the president is fulfilling his campaign promise when it's a subsidy and not really because we achieved efficiency, we were able to increase the yield per hectare? Parang it doesn't leave a good taste in the mouth, honestly.
Well, technically, when I have the data, no, that when he actually mentioned this during the time he was campaigning back then, achievable yung cost of 19.50, no? Because fertilizer at the time was only 700 pesos per bag. And yung fertilizer ngayon nasa mga 1.4, 1.5 per bag. Umakit pa yun ng 3,000 eh. So it is a possibility na bumaba ulit yan ang presyo ng bigas kung bumaba ang fertilizer prices sa mundo. And there's so many factors why it has risen. Too much detail siguro for now.
Oo nga po. Pero kasabay ba nitong subsidy na to ay tutuunan nyo ng pansin ng DA yung pag-akyat ng yield ng mga rice farms natin?
Definitely, no. We are expecting the best harvest for our crops this year, no. Last year lang, siyempre, mababa because of El Nino, La Nina. But of course, ang benchmark natin is 2023. We expect na we will have maybe 400,000 more tons than what we had in 2023.
And before I pass on to my colleagues here, Secretary, there have been worries or concerns that this action of a subsidy may depress prices, discourage local rice production, and encourage even more import dependence.
Well, ang plano naman natin is we're taking everything into consideration. Ano? Na pinaka-importante nga sa akin at sa DA at kay Pangulo, of course kay Pangulo, is yung ating mga farmers. So as of the moment, the plan is to actually increase the buying budget for NFA for next year. Ano? Para etong bigas naman na binibenta natin sa ating mga na 20 pesos or i-roll out natin, na sinabing hindi matutupad. I guarantee everybody na gagawin to, nakaplano na, we have the stocks and we have the machineries to do it, ay bibilhin din to sa local farmers natin lalo itong pilot period nito.
But yun nga, Secretary, no, bakit ba hindi mabenta yung rice galing sa local farmers when we think of the program kasi para siyang stopgap measure, no, dahil you wanna clear the warehouse for the next harvest, but how come that rice wasn't picked up with the initial program? Ano po yung naging issues na kailangan natin pondohan yung subsidiya para maibenta lang at 20 per kilo?
Technically, we can sell all the stocks we have now at 20 peso per kilo without further subsidy. But of course, we want the losses. We want to be able to buy more rice. That's why there was additional from the local farmers. That's why there was additional money that was nalinagay.
Pero for next year, ganito rin ba yung magiging patakaran? I know we're clearing the warehouses for the harvest, but ganito rin ba yung magiging siste for that harvest?
Well, if the Filipino people would like to have these programs, especially mga mahihirap nga at yung medyo vulnerable sectors natin at tuloy-tuloy ito hanggang 2028 while our BBM is our president, ay kung yan na hinihingi ng taong bayan, siyempre ibibigay ho natin.
But Secretary, you also have a lot of critics questioning the timing of the rollout of this program, right? Kasi last year po, and even the year before that, you have the Agriculture Department saying hindi pa po feasible or hindi posible pa ang 20 peso per kilo na bigas. But here it is being rolled out during election season and just a few weeks po after bumaba ang trust and approval ratings ni President Marcos.
Well, timing nga, it's if we call it bad timing or good timing on my part. Basically, last year, June pa na namin may plano na ganito. Then, but during that time, if we were going to do it, we will spend maybe almost 3 times more because of the very high price world market and local market, no? Ngayon, actually, bumaba lang ang presyo na nakita niyo nang bumaba, napababa yung presyo ng bigas starting mid-January na, February hanggang March hanggang April. At ng April, world prices have bottomed out and naging stable. So, eksakto, talagang right timing talaga na ito yung pinakamababa ngayon na presyo sa mundo in the last 3 or 4 years. So that's why pwede na, at bumaba din yung presyo natin from 55 to 60 plus ang presyo sa palengke. Ngayon, meron tayong 32 peso na bigas. So, it's more affordable now. While it is a subsidy, we're not denying that, but mas mura na ngayon ang subsidy nito.
And right now, Secretary, the beneficiaries of this program are indigent families, mga members po ng 4Ps, mga senior citizen, PWDs. Pero after po ba ng midterm elections, can we expect that these rice will be sold to the general public naman?
To the pilot project sa Visayas, hindi to namimili kung anong class ng tao or vulnerable ba o hindi. We leave it up to the LGUs to implement it kung sino tingin nila ang dapat mabigyan itong o mabentahan itong bigas na ito kasi they have a part in this, di ba? So, we leave it up to them. Then, ang pinaka-importante sa amin ngayon sa pilot period na to, yung datos, no, yung data na makukuha namin para maplano namin yung programa for 2026.
How do you plan where to roll out this program? Alam natin na na-delay siya, pero what was the rationale behind bakit Cebu muna and then where else na maaasahan ng mga taong bayan na sunod itong maro-roll out?
Well, ang actual pilot project was dapat Visayas region, basically region 6, 7, and 8, and NIR, Negros Island region, because of the high, doon mas mataas ang poverty incidence. Of course, Cebu as a province, hindi naman yan mataas ang poverty incidence. But ang maganda sa Cebu kasi, they were ready. They had the software, they had the cards, they had the system in order to implement this fast. And nasa sentro din sila ng Visayas, nandun yung mga warehouse din. So talagang sinama sila.
Secretary, did the government not consider instead just giving the rice directly via the 4-piece program para hindi apektado yung merkado?
Yung
Since
4-piece,
subsidy rin naman po ng gobyerno, ibigay nyo na.
yung 4-piece kasi, basically kalat-kalat all over the Philippines. Last year pa, I was talking to Sec Rex about it, na why not give rice and ano. But the problem is the logistics of giving the rice to all the 4-piece all over the country is medyo daunting. Kaya basically, cash ang binigay sa kanila at sila na bahala pumunta kung saan sila makakabili ng 20 pesos.
And yung role ng LGU in terms of determining sino po yung pwedeng maka-avail at
Yun
bumili.
na nga parang baka maging parang patronage naman po ulit.
May do you have safeguards against that, Secretary?
Basically naman, yung sistema ngayon is yung may software nga na pinahiram sila or pwede lang kopyahin that will basically monitor everybody kung sino, and may limit yan, Of course, dahil dito sa urgency namin to move out our stocks, I think yun ang more priority namin. But of course, we will fix this as we go with the pilot in the next 6 months.
Okay. Secretary, setting the subsidy aside, you said that there are all these plans and programs to be able to really produce price locally at a lower cost. Meron po ba kayong target price na yung talagang galing sa pagtulong, pagsuporta sa magsasaka? Can we pin you
Can
to
you
a
clarify
price?
target price?
Yeah.
Opo, yung
Well, target price of palay sana ay ang pagbili natin sa mga magsasaka is at 21 peso dry.
20
But of
to
course,
23. Oo.
to a minimum of 21 sana, no? But NFA is buying now 23, 24. But the problem is there are still many areas na hindi na maabot ng NFA, and yung traders na nakakapag maabot sa kanila, so medyo mababa. But we're correcting all of this, no? In fact, just to give you everybody information, lalo natin mga farmers, mga 150 rice processing centers na build natin during the BBM administration, 22 more this year, and meron pang 30 rice processing centers next year. And we're buying a lot of trucks this year to address the issue that came out of na may mga areas na mababa yung palay. So ngayon, pupunta na sa next harvest season, hopefully meron na yan, mapupuntahan na kung saan mababa, magpapadala na kami mga truck, kami na-pick up para mabili ng mas mataas. Plus yun na nga, dadagdagan nga, with this fund natin, madadagdagan ngayon ang pera ng NFA to buy more rice from our farmers.
So hindi sila talo dito. Yun ang kaba ng mga farmers groups na sila, you can sell to the consumer at 20, masaya sila, pero sila naman will be at the losing end.
Well, they should not worry because it's a law of supply and demand. The only way na bababa lahat ang presyo is kung may oversupply. What we are doing is simply buying the same rice from our farmers and selling it back to the farmers and the other consumers at a lower price.
At a loss, yeah,
Yes.
technically. But,
Yes.
but the farmer is not the one who's going to bear the brunt, but government
Yes.
or the taxpayer actually,
actually the taxpayer.
in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just as a matter of fact, this is not something unusual na ginagawa natin lang. No? Many countries are doing this. Malaysia is doing this. Indonesia, actually last year, during El Nino Niña, bought 4 times sa Vietnam and other markets and simply gave the rice away. So China's doing it for almost every year. No? Even Japan is subsidizing heavily also. So, in the US, it's corn. They subsidize the corn farmers. So in Europe, France, ganun din, di ba? In other crops. So this is nothing unusual. So wag gamitin yung pagka-politika para batikusin ho to. That this is normal. At sa totoo lang ho, ito hinihingi na ng mga tao matagal. Na alam naman yung lahat yun. Eh, ngayon na binigay, marami pa rin reklamo, pero ganyan talaga. But we will do it, and I guarantee you we will do it, and we will be rolling it out. Yan ho, utos ni Presidente. At sabi nga ni Presidente, ito na, gawin na natin.
Okay, pero Sec, hindi lang po rice yung mahal. Lahat po ng pagkain ay mahal. Ano po yung, very briefly lang siguro, yung plano ng DA also for the fishery sector, for the livestock sector? Meron din po ba kayong mga programa na bago?
Well, sa livestock, katulad ng manok, if you can check naman, yung manok naman is reasonable price now, no? Because mababa ho ang presyo ng manok ngayon. Ang problema natin talaga is baboy. Baboy is basically because of ASF. Dating almost 14 million heads ho yung ating mga baboy, pork. Ngayon, nasa 8 million na lang. So talagang short. So maraming nag-MSRP ho tayo. Medyo sumunod nung una, hindi sumusunod. Dahil talagang short eh. So meron na kami mga plano, but I plan to implement it after elections, no, inaayos muna namin itong rollout namin sa bigas. Sa fishery product naman, seafood, kung titignan naman nyo, ang bangus naman at ang tilapia is quite reasonable yung presyo. Diba? Ang galunggong lang ang mataas, pero ang sa akin, ang masasabi ko lang sa galunggong, huwag na natin isipin na murang isda yan. Basically, galunggong is already scarce. Wala na masyadong galunggong sa Pilipinas saka sa mga ibang bansa. It is overfished. That is the reality. But there are alternatives like tamban, turay, mga ganun na mas mura na, it's just a preference. Di ba? Yun, ganun basically.
Masarap naman po ang tamban. We thank you for your time po, Agriculture Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel.
Thank you.
Exactly 1 week to go before the midterm elections, and we have another survey on our hands from Pulse Asia. Senator Bongo continues to stay ahead of the pack with 62.2%, with Representative Erwin Tulfo, former Senate President Tito Soto, and Senator Bato de la Rosa at a distant second, third, and fourth. Senator Bong Revilla and former Senator Ping Lacson round out the top 6. Also in the probable winner's circle are re-electionists Lito Lapid and Pia Cayetano, Makati Mayor Abby Binay, and TV hosts Willie Revillame and Ben Tulfo. Still within striking distance of the Magic 12 are Representative Camille Villar and former Senators Manny Pacquiao and Bam Aquino. This survey was conducted between April 20 and 24 with 2,400 respondents with a margin of error of plus or minus 2%. Pulse Asia President Ronald Holmes says, at this point, the senatorial race remains tight.
The lower half, hindi sigurado yan eh. So, yun ang problema natin dyan. Hindi natin masabi na yung last 2 positions lang. Maaaring yung 6 na yan eh. Kasi dikit-dikit sila eh. Very hard to predict, basically.
We're going to take a quick break, but coming up, the Transportation Department moves to beef up road safety after the Labor Day SETEX tragedy, including cutting driving hours for public utility bus drivers. That story and more when the big story returns. Stay tuned.
The big story is back with the Makati City subway project taking a massive blow. The 200 billion peso initiative may no longer push through as it has been deemed, quote, no longer economically and operationally feasible. According to its contractor, the territorial dispute between Makati and Taguig has derailed the project. In a disclosure, Philippine Infradev Holdings Incorporated said that some of the stations and depots had been declared under the jurisdiction of Taguig following a Supreme Court decision. Aside from at least 10 barangays, the SC ruling also affected the alignment of the 11-kilometer subway and its stations.
Still on transportation, both drivers responsible for the ramming incidents at the SETEX and NAIA Terminal 1 tested negative for illegal drug use. Nevertheless, the Transportation Department wants mandatory drug tests for all drivers to prevent a repeat of the tragedies. Gerard De La Peña with the story.
CCTV footage showed one SUV suddenly crashing right into the people along the entrance of NAIA Terminal 1 on Sunday, May 4th. A 29-year-old man instantly died on impact. He was supposed to attend a business meeting in Dubai. Then, this heart-wrenching video of a father whose 4-year-old daughter was also killed by the vehicle. A day after the incident on Monday, NAIA T1 entrance where the accident happened has already been cleared and is back in operation. A temporary steel fence was put up on the part of the area where victims lost lives and several others were injured. A new bollard has also been installed and cemented. Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon could not hide his dismay over the bollard that failed to stop the SUV from slamming bystanders.
Makikita mo kaagad dun sa bollard na bumigay na hindi siya ganun katibay. Obviously, nakalusot eh. Ang purpose nga ng bollard is really kailangan dun na huminto yung dapat yun huminto na dun mismo. So, iniimbestigahan na to ngayon ng both ng MIAA at ng San Miguel Corporation. In fact, Mr. Ramon Ang and I spoke about it when we saw it, and they said that they would look at it and most likely they will be replaced by the operator, by San Miguel.
The 47-year-old suspect is now in PNP Aviation Security Group's custody and has underwent inquest. Human error has been cited as cause of the accident.
Nakita po naman natin na pagdating nila, bumaba siya pati yung kanyang pasaheros. Inabot na yung luggage, and then nung umalis po yung kanyang pasaheros, nakita natin na umabante. And then pagbalik po niya sa sasakyan. And then when he attempt na paalis na po sana, ay pumabante yung sasakyan, nataranta ang kanyang apakan, akala niya is rape, but it was the accelerator.
But he has already tested negative for illegal drugs. Meanwhile, the driver of the bus who caused the massive pileup along SCTEX last May 1 also underwent drug testing over the weekend. He tested negative as well. He will be brought to the LTFRB on Wednesday. The DOTR believes a mandatory drug test for drivers is crucial in avoiding gruesome accidents like these. Drivers will also be tested for roadworthiness and would be required to strictly adhere to the long-standing policy of having relievers every 6 hours on the road.
Hindi pa pwede yung aayaw. Hindi pa pwede. Hindi ka pwedeng umayaw kasi nagdadala ka ng pasahero eh.
The DOTR has already pledged financial and legal support to the families of the victims. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, We Are One News.
The public relations firm allegedly hired as a troll farm faced the Senate Special Committee on Philippine Maritime and Admiralty Zones today. Infinitus Marketing Solutions CEO Paul Lee denied the allegation. Lee maintained that their company is not into politics nor engaged in any unlawful activity. Committee Chairman Francis Tolentino claims Infinitus was tapped by the Chinese embassy in the Philippines to spread propaganda meant to influence the upcoming midterm elections. Tolentino presented in the hearing last week a contract and check to prove this. Lee denied having seen the said contract and explained that the check worth 930,000 pesos was payment for an event Infinitus organized for the embassy.
I categorically deny the allegation that Infinitus has engaged in any unlawful activity, including the spread of disinformation to influence this coming election. The supposed contract shown is not known to us, was never authorized by us.
Senator Tolentino, however, was not convinced by Lee's statements. He said he's thinking of filing cases of treason and espionage against Infinitus. The Chinese embassy was also invited to the hearing but said it could not send a representative.
This time at the Vatican, journalists from all over the world have started picking their spots in front of St. Peter's Basilica. This is in preparation for the conclave that begins Wednesday, May 7th. And on the ground is our very own News 5 correspondent, Mon Gualvez. Hi, Mon. With only 2 days before the conclave, what can you tell us?
Hi, Pauline. I'm currently here outside the building where the Synod Hall is located. The Synod Hall is the place where the cardinals are doing their meetings and discussions days before the conclave in which a new pope will be elected. So nasa last leg na raw itong mga cardinals para mapag-usapan yung mga current concerns of the Catholic Church that may be helpful for the election of the new pope or the leadership of the new pope na malalaman natin in the coming days. No? So dito sa labas ng Synod Hall, lumalabas yung mga cardinal din, labas-pasok sila dito, lalo kaninang lunchtime at talagang nananatili silang mailap sa media. No? This is not their usual thing. Pero kailangan nilang gawin ito as they had their oath of secrecy in the past days bago sila nag-start nitong mga gatherings. Pero syempre yung mga members of the media here or the press are insisting na talaga makahingi. Very persistent to ask for any updates from the cardinals. Pero yun nga, they're asking for prayers pa rin at saka hindi daw talaga nila pwedeng sabihin. Although the Vatican or the Holy See Press Office gives update naman kahit papano kung ano yung pinaka napag-uusapan sa mga gatherings na ginagawa ng mga cardinals dito sa area. Pauline.
Well, yesterday, Mono, was actually the feast day at the Pontificio Colegio Filipino, and you were able to attend the Mass there with the 3 Filipino cardinals. Nakausap mo ba sila, Mon? Did they entertain the media and say how they're preparing for the conclave?
Actually, it's very surprising to see the 3 cardinals, the 3 Filipino cardinals together days before the conclave. No? Sakto naman kasi talaga na yung celebration ng Pontificio Colegio Filipino, it's their 64th founding anniversary. Dumalo itong 3 Pilipinong kardinal na naninirahan or nag-i-stay dyan sa naturang institusyon. Kaya naman talagang sila ay napadalo At dito sa misang ito talagang naging mailap din yung tatlong Pilipinong kardinal. Bagamat nakausap natin kasamang si Cheryl Cosim, si Cardinal Ambo David for a little while, pero talagang more or less the three Filipino cardinals talagang chose na talagang umiwas muna sa public. In one incident, after the mass, currently right after the mass, talagang umexit na sila sa likod no ng chapel na ang madalas kasing ginagawa ng mga pare at ng mga kardinal kapag ganito mga celebration, pupunta sa congregation para batiin, para makipag-usap. Pero yung tatlo, pinili nila na pumunta na sa likod ng chapel at umiwas muna sa media at saka sa mga tao. Tinanong natin, no, paliwanag naman ng rektor ng naturang koledyo or ng institution, ang sinasabi niya, kailangan doon kasi talagang manatili muna on a silent mode, ika nga niya, no, itong tatlong Pilipinong kardinal bilang paghahanda sa kanilang pananalangin din at pagpasok nga sa Sistine Chapel para naman sa mangyayaring conclave. Pauline.
Well, speaking of the conclave, Mon, sa Wednesday na nga yan, anong oras ba pwede nating asahan magsimula yan dyan sa Vatican?
According to reports, 10 o'clock in the morning dito sa Vatican, which is 4 o'clock in the afternoon dyan sa Pilipinas, magsisimula yung misa sa St. Peter's Basilica na dadaluhan ng lahat ng mga kasama sa mga cardinals na boboto or mga cardinals electors nga dito sa mangyayaring conclave. In the afternoon, dito na mangyayari yung unang boto or pagboto ng mga kardinal sa mangyayaring conclave. Sa mga nakaraan, bihira no or malabong nagkakaroon kaagad ng Santo Papa sa unang pagboto pa lamang. Pero again, there's always a possibility at maaari naman itong mangyari. Pero in the coming days, dalawa na yung dalawang beses na magkakaroon ng botohan yung mga cardinal electors, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. So starting on Wednesday, talagang nakaabang na halos lahat ng mga Katoliko dito sa may St. Peter's Square. Actually, right now, patuloy na dumarating yung mga tao dito sa St. Peter's Square. Sa ngayon, pinapapasok pa sa St. Peter's Basilica yung ilan, although mahigpit yung security, pero inaasahan na mas darami pa yung mga tao dito sa area, including the media, in which additional information lamang when we asked the Holy See Press Office kung gaano karami ba yung mga nag-apply ng accreditation for the said coverage. Ang sinasabi nila, more or less, nasa 4,000 na ang mga nag-apply ng mga media institutions all over the world at inaasahan pa rin dadami pa ito in the coming days as the conclave malumalapit na. Pauline.
Well, hopefully, Mon, sana makakuha ka ng magandang pwesto dyan sa tapat ng St. Peter's Basilica. But for now, thank you very much for that update. That was Mon Gualvez reporting to us live from the Vatican.
After this break, we won't be straying far from Rome, where 3 Filipino cardinals, along with hundreds of others, are waiting to elect a new pope. 1PH anchor Cheryl Cosim will be joining us to tell us what to expect during that conclave. When the big story returns, keep it here.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines defended Luis Antonio Cardinal Tagle from criticism that he did not say enough about the alleged sexual abuses within the church. Watchdog group BishopAccountability.org claimed Tagle cannot be trusted to protect children and accused the Philippine Church of remaining in the dark ages on abuse transparency. In a statement, though, the CBCP expressed solidarity with victims and survivors of sexual abuse, especially those harmed by the clergy. It said pastoral guidelines to address cases of sexual abuse and misconduct were circulated as far back as the early 2000s. The CBCP further explained that Tagle, now serving in the Vatican, can no longer oversee any local diocese, and abuse cases are handled by local bishops or religious leaders. After Pope Francis's death, Tagle has been named by various church pundits as one of the strongest contenders for the papacy. At Imus Cathedral, where he served as parish priest and then bishop, several vouched for Tagle's capability as a shepherd.
Very practical, very grounded sa realities ng buhay natin.
Ang mabuting pastol, kaamuhin niya yung tupa. So napakasimple ni Cardinal.
And now more updates from the Vatican. 2 days before the start of the conclave. Red curtains have been put up on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. The chimney where the smoke signaling the election of a new pope has also been installed at the Sistine Chapel. Here's more of what we need to know from 1PH anchor Cheryl Cosim reporting to us live. Hi Cheryl, what's the current mood there in the Vatican? Dalawang tulog na lang. Tell us what exactly will happen during the conclave.
Oo nga. Hi, Ses. Good evening and good afternoon here from St. Peter's Square here in Rome. Alam mo, wala na talagang tulugan. Diba? It's a beautiful afternoon and you can feel the quiet anticipation building in the air. In just 2 days, the papal conclave will begin where the cardinals will gather to elect the next pope. For now, tourists are taking in the sights, pilgrims are praying, and media crews are setting up for what's expected to be a historic moment. While the atmosphere is calm, everyone's attention is slowly turning towards the Sistine Chapel as the countdown to the conclave continues. Ang lahat nga ng mata ay nakatutok na sa mga susunod na araw, says Sean and Pauline. And now I'm joined today by Father Derek James Vergara to help us understand what we can expect in the coming days before the conclave begins. Father Derek, thank you. Maraming salamat for joining us.
Walang anuman po at maraming salamat din po sa inyong pag-imbita at magandang gabi po sa inyo pong lahat na nanonood at nakikinig sa inyo pong programa.
And Father Derek, what can we expect in the coming days?
Well, katulad po ng ginagawa po ng College of Cardinals ngayon hanggang bukas, we are still expecting from them na magkakaroon pa rin sila ng general congregations. The last one would be tomorrow, no, before the day of the conclave, and part pa rin ito ng kanilang pagninilay reflection regarding the future of the church and regarding the present situation of the church. So to help each cardinal electors to reflect ano ba yung mga kailangan nating qualities or sino ba sa atin ang may kakayahan kaya na mag-address ng ganitong issues sa simbahan.
And what qualities do you think the cardinals will look for in the next pope?
Personally, no, para sa akin, siguro ang titignan nila ay yung isang kardinal na mayroong malinaw na vision para sa simbahan while at the same time remaining faithful to the teachings of Christ and to the teachings of the church. Kasi hindi naman usapan dito yung liberal o konserbatibo. Ang usapin dito is kung orthodox ba, faithful sa turo ng simbahan, or baka mamaya ay maging lumayo tayo doon sa turo ng simbahan at sa turo ni Kristo. So yung conservatism, liberalism, yan ay mode ng pag-a-apply ng teaching ng simbahan. And sabi nga ng canon law, isa sa mga requirement ng cardinal ay prudent in action. So ibig sabihin, he knows when and how to apply, no, itong dalawang bagay na ito depending sa circumstances ng simbahan while at the same time remaining faithful to the teachings of Christ and to the teachings of the church.
Pero masasabi ba natin then, Father Derek, na depende rin ito sa kasalukuyang sitwasyon ngayon ng panahon?
Opo, malaking factor po iyon na ibig sabihin ay kung anong sitwasyon ang mayroon tayo, especially yung global order natin ngayon ay hindi masyadong stable, and alam naman natin na ang simbahan ay from the beginning until ngayon ay tinitignan siya parang moral compass ng buong mundo. So importante din na makita din ng buong mundo dun sa susunod na Santo Papa yung kumbaga paano niya i-direct yung simbahan, because of course lahat tayo na mga Kristiyano, lahat tayo na mga Katoliko, dispersed tayo all throughout the world, and we look upon the Pope for the direction.
Alam mo, Ses, kahapon nung tayo'y dumating, yung ating team, ay nagkaroon pa tayo ng pagkakataon na makausap si Cardinal David. Ayaw na sana niyang magpa-unlock ng interview dahil daw nag-take na siya ng oath of secrecy. Pero sabi niya ay handa na at excited na sila, especially para sa kanya at kay Cardinal Advincola na unang beses na magpa-participate dito sa conclave. At kung titignan natin ang Apostolic Constitution, ang nakalagay doon ay 120 cardinals lang ang dapat na bumoto. Pero ang cardinals natin ngayon na pwedeng bumoto ay nasa 133. So isa ito sa mga naresolba naman sa General Congregation na every now and then na ginagawa ng mga College of Cardinals na actually nakakasyam na sila, no, Father? Pang-sampu ngayong araw.
Yes, opo. Pang-sampu po ngayon ang kanilang General Congregation at nagkakasalukuyan po na ongoing pa itong General Congregation. Katulad nga po nung sinabi ko kanina ay patuloy pa nilang pinag-uusapan ano ba yung mga kailangan nating resolbahin at kinakaharap natin ngayon sa simbahan. And with regards naman po do sa 120 na maximum na nakalagay do sa Apostolic Constitution, totoo po yun. Pero sabi ng mga kanonista, ng mga legal expert po ay na-supersede ito nung by the fact and by the decree of Pope Francis creating 135 cardinals. So by that ay parang presupposition na nasa isip ni Pope Francis na isupersede itong 120 na cardinal elector limit ng Apostolic Constitution.
Patuloy ang pagdarasal ng ating tatlong kardinal na sila ay makapagdesisyon ng tama sa pagpili nga sa susunod na uupong Santo Papa. Pero alam mo, Ses, Sean and Pauline, kung pagbabasihan ko yung naging pakikipag-usap namin ng maiksi kay Cardinal David, ay malaki yung impluensya na iniwan ni Pope Francis. Malaking bagay na iminulat muli ang simbahang Katolika na hindi dapat sila ang nilalapitan ng tao, kundi sila ang bumababa sa mga Katoliko. And also, mas naging inclusive at mas naging open. Mas open ang church ngayon, ang Catholic Church sa lahat. Ano, Father Vergara?
Oo, tama po yun, Miss Cheryl. At isa yun sa mga sabihin nating legacy. Bagamat sabi ni Pope Francis ayaw niyang sabihin na mayroon siyang iiwanang legacy. Pero isa ito doon sa mga tumatak sa ating mga Katoliko. At hindi lang sa atin siguro, kundi sa lahat ng tao. No? Yung fraternal solidarity na tinatawag ni Pope Francis. Na tayong lahat, tayong mga tao ay iisa, no, na magkakapatid dahil tayong lahat ay nilikha ng Diyos.
Salamat sa inyong dalawa, Cheryl Cosim.
So far, yan ang latest.
Thank you, Cheryl. At sa iyo rin, Father Derek Vergara, nasagot nyo lahat ng mga tanong namin dito. All the way from the Vatican at tila nakikisama ang panahon dyan sa inyo dahil medyo mahaba-haba kayong magbi-vigil dyan at mag-aabang ng ating magiging bagong Santo Papa. Maraming salamat.
And over the weekend, may isang image that went viral and not exactly for the right reasons. And that is our big picture for tonight. An AI-generated photo of U.S. President Donald Trump dressed as a Catholic Pope. The image was shared on the official accounts of the White House and POTUS, while Catholics are still mourning the death of Pope Francis. And among those who criticized the photo was our very own Cardinal Ambo David, who posted the phrase, "Not funny, sir," in multiple languages, making it very clear to the world that this is not okay.
Well said, Cardinal Ambo.
In multiple languages.
May Pilipino ba siyang ginamit? You know, that image escaped me. What rock was I hiding under?
The peaceful rock. All right, it's going to be quite the week, but for tonight, that's it for the big story.
PR1 News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you for watching. Have a good night.